Hey folks, as it turns out, the program I use to record my videos is responsible for this weird jumping and missing frames in my video footage, and this War Theater video does suffer from it. The game performs fine in 99% of circumstances, and I bring up in the commentary when it doesn't. I wish I had time to record this video again, but for multiple reasons I don't, and I'm sorry about that. I'll try and have it fixed the next time I need to record. I hope you get use out of the video anyway. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out War Theater. This is the latest from developer Luke Bernard and his group Arcade Distillery. They previously did the Desert Ashes, Pocket God with Desert Ashes, and Mecho Wars. The first two were turn-based strategy games a la Advance Wars, and the latter was a sort of platformer shooter, both of which I didn't really get along with for multiple reasons. War Theater is another Advance Wars clone. Feels weird to say that. I mean, you would think I'm going a little bit too far calling it an Advance Wars clone, but that's basically what it is. I mean, as soon as you see the actual gameplay, and if you've ever played Advance Wars before, you'll say to yourself, yeah, that's an Advance Wars game. That was so clearly inspired by Advance Wars that I almost feel bad about it. But anyway, we got a fair bit to take a look at here, but not really, because it looks like a big menu, but it's really not. For example, the multiplayer, which, funnily enough, doesn't actually exist on the PlayStation 4 version, only the Switch and the Vita. How bizarre is that one, right? But it requires an entirely separate account, which I didn't bother to make. I have so many accounts already. I have like 9 passwords, and I think 7 of them have been compromised. Thankfully, all the important ones are on new passwords, but I mean, Jesus. So you've got some options here, but it's not much. Auto login is auto login to the multiplayer stuff, which is fine. Not entirely sure what that's about, but okay. The rest is pretty self-explanatory, so we're down to 3 items here: Skirmish, Campaign, and the Arms Dealer. Skirmish is exactly what it sounds like. You go up against the AI, or maybe you have 2 humans on the same console, or you can watch the AI battle it out. That's mainly what we'll be doing for the majority of this video, watching AI fight, because every time I play a turn-based strategy game, everybody tells me I move too slow, and I like being able to put the AI against each other because it leaves me free to talk about stuff. The Arms Dealer, which we'll get into, and the Campaign. I'll go do a mission in the Campaign just to demonstrate the game's basic gameplay and mechanics, and then we'll move on to the AI battles. So you actually get 7 different campaigns here, each one for every individual character, or I think they're called heroes in this game. And heroes each have their own unique special abilities. However, we can't actually see them here or even while we're inside playing until we earn the SP. So what we have to do is go back to the War Dealer. But we're not going to do that right now. We're just going to go with Marina of Ald. And every campaign has a set of maps. This is the furthest I've gotten in any of the campaigns. I've played about 6 or 7 as different heroes. And, well, let me just put it this way. The campaigns are very simple. They're basically just excuses for fights between 2 different heroes. Just for the purpose of demonstration, we're going to demonstrate. Now, I don't have any perks. There's a reason for this, we'll get to that. So we'll just hit confirm perks and go. Now, you can keep a different campaign and skirmish game, and I'm guessing you can also keep a different multiplayer game and maybe play via, like, turns by email, you know, that old system where you can close the game and come back later. I don't know, I haven't tried it. I think that was how Desert Ashes worked though, so I'd be surprised if this didn't work under the same system. But this is just me being potentially wrong. That's all the story you get, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'm not even kidding. Pretty much every single campaign mission is just a small selection of text like that, and then you're on to the fight. There doesn't seem to be any major overarching story. I think the idea of this universe is supposed to be that this takes place 1,000 years after Desert Ashes? Or 1,000 years before. It's one or the other. Either way, it doesn't seem to make a difference, and there doesn't seem to be much story at all. There's very little details on the heroes themselves outside of their bio screens, which we'll get to very shortly. And that's just kind of it. So let's just take a look around and demonstrate the controls here, which are very simple. You get left, right, up, down, cancel, and select. And that's pretty much it. I would probably prefer being able to map end turn to a separate button. So maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe putting end turn on triangle would be better, because I have at least once accidentally ended my turn too early by hitting X twice, because it automatically leaves the cursor on end turn. It's kind of frustrating like that. So, let's demonstrate the basic mechanics before we go and do our AI fight. So, here's our hero. Our hero has a lot of movement. Here's a soldier. A soldier has less movement. And of course, every different unit has a different movement speed. We can also go to a factory to build a particular unit. Now, as far as I'm aware, I have played a few different heroes and none of them have any unique units. So I don't think anyone has any different units outside of the selection we have here and in the, what's the word I'm looking for? In the harbor, which is what you use to build boat units. So you've got 3 different kinds of infantry units, and the more expensive you're willing to make them, the less they can move, but the stronger their attacks are. You do also have 2 heavy units, the tank and the mech. You have the APC, which isn't really good against anything, but can carry up to 4 soldier units. You have the blimp and the big blimp. The big blimp can't move as far, but has a much better attack range, so you basically have no reason to not buy big blimps over regular blimps, because despite the fact that it says it's strong versus heavy, heavies can still wipe out blimps in one shot, so you really do want that extra range, so you can get at least one attack off before the blimps die. At least that's been my experience. We can also come down here to the water-based factory, which I called the harbor because I'm an idiot, and you can see the 2 different air units you have, and they are strong versus land, but they are weak versus air. Makes more than enough sense to me. You can buy units, of course, just by pressing the X button and going to buy. They can't move, so you can only produce 1 unit per turn. You do also have cities, which you can capture, and these will give you 400 gold each month. Turn. What the fuck am I thinking? What game am I playing that takes place in months? Jesus. You also have a unit limit count. So you can see up in the top left there that I've got 4 out of 14 units. I believe it's every time you capture a factory, you get 3 extra units. So yes, you do also of course have your headquarters, which you can only build soldier units from. And just for the purpose of demonstration, let's build a few things and take a single turn. Your hero units are very strong, but they also have some unique abilities on them. As you can see, I honestly don't know the sexes of most of these units. She has 1 skill point. Every turn you'll get a skill point, and you can use those skill points to do things along the lines of, well, in the case of the one hero that I do remember, which is, I don't even remember the name, but the one hero I do remember lets you basically create some extra units. There is also a commander who will let you not only randomly heal 1 unit, but heal every unit within a certain area if you've got the skill points, if you've got the SP to do it with. So let's just end the turn and watch the AI take theirs. This mission is one of 3 mission types in the game. It involves killing the tank. The other 2 mission types are eliminate the enemy and capture the enemy's HQ. Capturing works exactly the way you might expect. So if you, I'm not going to bother showing it, but if you move If you move a infantry unit over a building you don't own, you'll have the option to capture it. If you move it over a building that's been captured by an enemy, you'll be able to capture it, which will make it... what's the word I'm looking for? Which will make it unowned, and then you can capture it again next turn to own it. There is also, of course, different terrain. You have water, which you can't move over with anything that's not a water unit. You do also have all sorts of land types, like the forest, which will give you a big boost to your defense, but means you can't move as far. Same thing with the hill, but for attack. Buildings will give you extra attack and defense, but will let you move just that little bit less. Cities and factories don't convey any bonuses. And that's pretty much it. There are, of course, battles in this game, which I will not show off right now, because it's going to take a couple of extra turns. And you can also get critical hits, which don't seem to be determined by anything. So, that's a quick demonstration of the mechanics. Now, let me show you why I don't like most of them. This is the arms dealer. So, the arms dealer is something that they don't actually tell you about. At least right away. If you're paying attention to the screenshots on the Vita store... or, I think it's the Vita store anyway. Or if you are just really inquisitive at the very beginning, you'll find out about this. But I didn't find out about this until after I'd played a few games, which annoyed the shit out of me, because you should really be told about this right off the bat. So you've got perks, and I've got no perks right now because you need to go buy them. And as you can see, they're all basically just straight upgrades. So, like, increase attack damage for all allied units. That is a straight upgrade, no matter what anybody says. You've also got a bunch of other things here, like, you know, increase attack damage in certain structures, increase defense for all units, because of course, and increase it for heavy units, infantry units, allied units and structures, and forests on hills or whatever. And then you've got increase damage of critical strikes, increase your chance of critical strikes, and these gold numbers are insane, by the way. Buy units at a discount, increase health received through replenishment. You get the idea. Some of these are just ridiculous in terms of how hard they can break the balance. So you have to buy them using gold. How you get gold? Via quests. Here are the quests. You can do these. You can do these by playing in the campaign or in the skirmish mode. Most of them are pretty simple from what I've seen so far. Defeat air units, defeat water units, defeat heavy units, defeat certain heroes. However, here's the annoying thing about them. Well, again, other than just, you know, being a long time to actually earn anything. If you successfully complete a quest, you have to come back to this menu, then redeem it, then go back to your available quests and get it again. Also, for some reason, my quest's 5 out of 8. Okay, you would assume that I could get more, but I assume not. But yeah, you have to come back, turn these in once you've done them, which, trust me, is very easy to forget about, because I did. I forgot to come back and turn in an infantry assault, because you only have to kill 10 of them, and then pick it back up again. Because the game should honestly do that for you automatically, or at the very least, redeem the quest automatically. I don't know why it doesn't do that. Surely you can do that, guys. I mean, come on. But the worst part about this is actually the heroes. If we go to the heroes, you can see that all of the heroes cost some ridiculous amount of money. You'll have to be playing multiple games just to be able to afford being able to pick any of these up. And I'm just going to slowly go through all of them so that you can read all of the abilities that they have. Feel free to pause the video if I'm going just a little bit too fast for you. And then there's another problem. Daily usable hero. Also, for some reason up the top it says select hero player 2, despite the fact that we're not actually on a hero select screen. But yes, they cost a ton of money, and outside of playing the individual campaigns, you can't actually use them without paying for them. Without paying surprisingly large amounts for them. I mean, sure, you can earn 2,400 gold by beating a certain hero, right? But if you're playing the campaign, you've got no way to know if that enemy is actually coming unless you go look up a guide or you get lucky. So that's just kind of frustrating, because it means that you have to basically get lucky in order to successfully earn a bunch of money. And I assume you can't use the perks or the extra heroes in multiplayer as well. So unless you do a fair bit of grinding in the campaign to earn yourself all the perks that you want, you're going to be outranked as soon as you hop onto the multiplayer. Also, you don't actually earn anything. Like, you don't earn any extra coins by winning a skirmish match or by finishing campaign levels. It's all entirely via quests. And that just kind of annoys the hell out of me. That is legitimately not the best way to earn money, I gotta say. So we'll take a quick look at the skirmish stuff before we actually go on and just let the AI fight itself for a bit. But as you can see, there's a fair few different maps, but here's one thing I don't like about them. Well, a few things actually. For one, they all look exactly the same. No real visual difference between them. You get a ton of them. Like, I will say you get a ton of them. You get like 20-something maps easy. But, yeah, they're all visually the same. So, it's not great. You do also only get 3 modes as well. Annihilation, exterminate the enemy. Conquer, capture their HQ. And Assassination, assassinate the targeted member of the opposing team. Assassination doesn't actually work. I don't know why. I tried it. I tried it both in a game by myself, and I let the AI fight itself. Assassination just doesn't work. For whatever reason. Either that, or it's really unclear what actual unit has been picked as part of the assassination thing. But whatever, we're just going to go with Conquer, because frankly the two of them turn out the same way anyway. If you haven't wiped out all their units, chances are you're not getting to their HQ anyway. So you can select perks for both players, obviously, and you can also select the hero, but of course, you can't actually get anyone even if you're fighting AI. You're just stuck with the default hero, which is, again, really frustrating. Like, why can't you just let me fight against... Oh, wait, because that would mean it would be a shortcut to beating the certain AI you need in order to earn certain amounts of money. Bastards. So, we're just going to confirm the players, and we're just going to let this go. Thankfully, it's going to be pretty much completely automated as soon as I commence the mission. And the AI is just going to play itself here, and there's going to be battle scenes, and we're just going to sit here and watch, because admittedly that would be a lot better than just waiting for me to properly take turns. Now, let me talk about the gameplay itself before I get too deeply into criticizing the idea of perks, because in all honesty, the actual gameplay is pretty good. Just on a general level, I am absolutely fine with the way that War Theater plays. I've said it before, it's an out-and-out Advance Wars clone, but it does that alright. Outside of the fact that it doesn't really tell you what you're doing. Now, I was talking to Luke Bernard. I got my code for War Theater directly from him. And he said to me that I wouldn't be too into it because it's a hardcore, doesn't hold your hand strategy RPG. I have a couple of problems with this statement. Mainly that I've played more complex strategy RPGs than this and had fun with them. Like, for example, SD Gundam G Generation Genesis, which is miles ahead of this game in terms of just mechanical complexity. This game's battles are actually very simple in that sense, because enemies are guaranteed to hit other enemies. It's just determined what type they are on the rock, paper, scissors, infantry, heavy, air, with the water being slapped in whenever. It's just determined by that how much damage you do. Attacks don't miss. You can see exactly how much damage you're going to do except for critical hits. And you'll also see, before you do the battle, just how much damage you'll do back. There's no fog of war. There's no units being dedicated to a turn until you actually press wait. So you can move an enemy into range of another enemy. see what the attack damage will be and then just cancel the movement. So if you don't like the results of what's going to happen, that's fine. And this is okay. This is all okay. There's nothing particularly wrong with this approach. And here's what the battle animations look like. Although this one looks kind of silly. It's an air enemy attacking another air enemy by dropping bombs. So it looks like they've got some kind of infinite chain of drops going on. It just breaks my brain trying to think about the spatial logistics of it, but nevertheless. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with the way the base gameplay works. It's simple, but that works to its benefit. Being able to look at this game, and if you've played Advance Wars before, basically understand exactly how it works is actually a pretty nice thing to be able to do. With that said, it is still pretty simple. Most of the mechanics are easy to grasp within a couple of matches, and then all you really need to do is just play. The AI is capable, but I wouldn't call it rock hard. This is War Screech, one of his abilities, and it appears to have lowered the attack of any of the abilities around it. Enemies, I should say, around it, which makes enough sense to me. Particular dudes are good at what they do, and the majority of the game is just maneuvering them around so that they are at a place where they're good at what they do. This is fine. This works exactly as expected, and I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. It's just, my problem with it is that it's not very mechanically deep, and I think the best way to demonstrate this is to say that this gameplay that you're watching right now is basically exactly the same across the entirety of the game. There doesn't seem to be any maps that really change anything up. There doesn't even seem to be anything that's more than 2 players. Like, even SD Gundam G Generation Genesis had at least 3 factions sometimes, but yeah, in this game it's only 2 people. I can swear I remember games like Advance Wars letting you fight at least 4 people at a time, but no, in this game you only fight one-on-one, which is kind of disappointing because 4-way matches are inherently interesting, or at the very least, having like 4 players, but having them go against each other 2-on-2. That would make things interesting because you get really big units. At least it keeps the pace up, for the most part anyway. The more stuff you capture, the slower the pace gets because you have to move more units per turn. But even then, this game still remains much faster than comparable games like Daizen Ryaku, which again is a more hardcore strategy game than this. But still, it's simple, and some people might not appreciate that, but it's still pretty decent at what it does overall. The rock, paper, scissors triangle makes perfect sense. The just general strategy gameplay is pretty good, and the AI is pretty capable of keeping up, although I have seen it do some really strange things. Like, for example, I have seen it move onto a factory, aka the only factory that it has, so that it can't actually build a unit on that factory that turn. I have seen it do stuff like that, but for the most part, it will give you a relatively decent challenge. However, there doesn't seem to be any sort of difficulty levels in the game, so unless they do something in the campaign, like give the enemy more units and more buildings to start out with, I don't think it's going to get any harder, but then again, I haven't played too far into any one campaign, so I could be wrong about this. It'll still give you a decent challenge, though, which I'm pretty sure most people can appreciate. There's a critical hit for you. Admittedly, there are a couple of, like... Just to go back to the mechanics talk again, because this is something that's bugged me, but the game itself, again, doesn't really introduce any new mechanics, and I remember Desert Ashes doing something really interesting where at nightfall, which just isn't a thing in this game, day-night cycles aren't a thing in this game anymore, but I remember at nightfall the oceans would freeze over, and if you were quick enough you could actually get physical units across the water. That I liked. I thought that was actually a really unique idea, and I'm kind of disappointed it didn't come back for War Theater. That should just give you an idea of how little, like, variety there is on the general formula in this game. And then again, I'm left thinking of games that cost more than it and all that, because this game is only $10, which is actually a pretty good price for it, especially if you're willing to play the multiplayer. But then again, Wargroove came out not too recently, and that is not the best situation for this game, especially since this game also came out on Switch. Sure, that game is about twice the price, but it also has like 5 times the features. It has custom maps, it has more than one faction that, as far as I'm aware, I don't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure they do have unique units. And there are plenty of campaign maps with a proper story, unlike this game, which seems to be relatively light on that front. And a bunch of other things. So, yeah. Especially on a console where I could say, go play SD Gundam G Generation Genesis if you were looking for this concept but more interesting in terms of gameplay variety. So, just to summarize everything I've just said, it does what it does well enough, but it's pretty basic about it, and I'm just a little bit disappointed by the fact that it's basically just one-on-one Advance Wars with no real interesting mechanics to spice up the gameplay. And then you got perks, which basically means that if you want to be able to do the most damage possible, you just have to grind quests out, which seems kind of against the point. Like, I'm surprised that they don't just give you, like, money for successfully winning against the AI or beating a campaign match or whatever, but yeah, that's a thing. Also, you can have up to 8 perks at one time, so to completely fill out your perks, you do have to do a lot of quests. A lot of them. I don't know if the multiplayer requires them, as I said before, but if it does, boy howdy, that would be a very bad thing indeed. What else do I have to say about it? The art design is really nice. Like, that's one thing that Arcade Distillery has got going for them, is that they've always got unique graphics. The most generic part of the game is this terrain map here, but whenever you get to the actual battle scenes, they look nice. And every unit looks different. They have, like, interesting animations, and it just looks overall surprisingly nice when you get to these, but unfortunately it doesn't keep a stable 30 or 60 FPS. I'm not entirely sure what this game is running at, but it doesn't keep a stable frame rate, and it makes some of the animations look really choppy. There's this one particular unit that I can't remember the name of. It's a hero that summons, like, undead skeletons to attack a place, and they all run across the screen and have these giant green smoke clouds that make the animation look almost like stop motion with how many frames it drops. It's kind of bizarre, actually. There are also some technical glitches. Most of them have been minor that I'm not even going to bother mentioning them, but the major one that I noticed, you know how in Star Wars, when they've got a bad connection with people on, like, the hologram communication system, and, like, parts of their bodies start to, like, fizzle out, just jump over, like, static lines on a TV screen? I've seen that happen on a game where I was watching the AI fight itself. All of their ground units, and none of their other units, but just on one side, were starting to fizzle out every few seconds. It was a little bizarre, I've got to say. I haven't encountered anything along the lines of crashes or freezes or anything like that, though, so I will say that the game is mostly stable. So there's nothing really wrong there. It looks like purple's going to win this fight. Nobody even went for that factory up the top there, but purple does appear to be closer to maintaining control than our friends, the yellows. Also, that's a weird... kind of a weird selection of colors for your two opposing sides, yellow and purple, but it does work in this atmosphere, so I'm not going to complain about it too much. One thing I really would have appreciated, though, is just a reference of certain things. Like, he does say that, he did say to me that the game doesn't hold your hand, but I don't see why he couldn't have made a more in-depth, like, manual that just explains all of the different troops, lists all of the terrain types, and just, you know, just gives the general explanation of the game, because it really is basic Advance Wars style combat. So it's not like it's hard to figure out. I just don't see any reason why not to include that, like, in a manual. This is one of the few games I've seen recently where it doesn't actually take all of the Vita's RAM to run, so you could easily pop into the included, like, manual out in the live area and just read up on all the game's mechanics. But for some reason, they don't really feel the need to do that. It would be mostly useful with the heroes, though, if you just need a quick reminder on what sort of bullshit the war tank can pull on you before he actually pulls it on you. Who knows, maybe yellow's got more of a chance after all. They did just take out the purple hero, which is interesting, because heroes are actually quite powerful in this game. If you manage to keep one alive while taking out the other hero, you do have a significant advantage. So maybe yellow will win this fight. And then again, I did forget in the stability talk about the assassination mode just not working for some reason. The game did end, but only after the AI actually, me or the AI would successfully just capture everything so that the enemy couldn't build anything anyway, but still. I don't know what the deal is with the assassination mode. I'm not sure why it doesn't work. I assumed it would be the heroes. Like, you would think that would be the entire point of assassination. Take out the enemy hero, and I did, and nothing happened. So I finished that game by capturing everything, and then I went and did the AI and let it fight each other and ended up with the same thing. So assassination just doesn't appear to be a working mode. Shrug? Maybe that'll be fixed in a patch, I don't know. But anyway, I'm just going to shut up and let the AI play the rest of this game itself. But before I do that, let me summarize everything I've said up to this point. The actual gameplay is pretty decent. It's missing a fair few, like... Well, I'm not going to say it's missing mechanics, more like I wish there were more mechanics, but it is still down-to-earth Advance Wars in a neat setting. And that's kind of cool, but again, lack of interesting mechanics means I probably won't be playing this one for too long if I feel the need to play it anymore, which I really don't. I'd rather go back to SD, Gundam G Generation, Genesis, maybe finally check out Wargroove now that they've added mid-mission checkpoints, or just go back and play Advance Wars on the GBA because I've been meaning to give that series a replay for a while. I finished Advance Wars 2 via emulator, and that game's great. But yeah, the lack of mechanical depth being replaced with the perks, which you basically just have to grind for and they just give you straight bonuses, just kind of ticks me off, because it means that you just have to do some pointless grinding in order to actually unlock the full potential of your army. And I could see that having some potential balance issues as well, which might annoy some more in-depth strategy players. And I do have some other minor issues with the game as well. Like, the fact that you've got 7 campaigns is great, but there just doesn't seem to be that much to them. Not much in the way of story, Not much in the way of establishing the universe. It just seems to be characters going around and fighting each other with a few lines of text beforehand to say, oh, I don't like this guy, I'm going to go fight him. There's plenty of maps, but there's nothing in the way of multiple people fighting each other at once, which kind of disappoints me. The multiplayer does require a separate third-party account, which some people might not like. And assassination just doesn't work for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. Just a lot of niggles and a couple of big problems, like, again, the perks. But still, the actual gameplay is pretty good. That just seems to be the only thing it's really got going for it. Would I recommend it? I mean, if you've got like $10 and only $10 to spend on a game like this, admittedly, this is the best game that Arcade Distillery has put out so far, at least in my eyes. But if you're just looking for a general turn-based strategy, Advance Wars style game, I'd rather point you towards either SD Gundam G Generation Genesis, because I just believe that game's got more mechanical depth, more variety, actually has RPG elements as stated on the box, unlike this game, which doesn't so much have RPG elements as just extra power-ups that you buy by playing the game a lot, and is just a more interesting strategy game in general than this one. Or if you really want to get out there, you should go play Daisen Ryaku Exceed 2, which is the Advance Wars concept, but put into real-world military strategy, and is just absolutely bonkers with the amount of real-world units they include, and the fact that turns can take so long that it would legitimately take several hours to get through one fight. But if you're looking for a relatively decently paced Advance Wars clone that doesn't do much more than that, this will be fine. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on that. So, this video will end when the AI decides that it's had enough and one decides to be the victor. This has been Blue Maxima, and I will see you all next time.